What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you clicking on the video. So you can see from the title, got to talk about Caitlin Clark on this one. I feel like past couple of days there's been a lot of conversations about her in terms of her standing in the WNBA with other players and their kind of actions toward her. So I wanted to kind of give my opinion on it. Like I said, this is my opinion. So if you may disagree, which is perfectly fine, we'll obviously talk about that down in the comment section. But I also want to talk about the first take aspect of this because I feel like that's where a lot of conversations have definitely been started because of what happened on first take the other day. So let's go ahead and get into it with this play right here, which has kind of spearheaded a lot of the Caitlin Clark talk. Kennedy Carter, Caitlin Clark's there waiting for the inbound. And Kennedy runs at her, knocks her down, which the league later upgraded to a flagrant one foul. I don't have a problem with that. But some of the reactions from the play are a bit much. I believe there was a Chicago reporter that called it assault. You've seen Kennedy Carter's like picture and bio all over Twitter showing the stops that she's been to and I guess her checkered past. I guess you want to call it that. I feel like it. If you want to say it was unnecessary, sure. That's. I don't think that's an issue in this case, but it's kind of created this larger conversation that WNBA players are jealous of Caitlin Clark, which is why a lot of this is happening. That's not to say there isn't some jealousy involved because we don't know what's going on with each individual player when they go up against Caitlin Clark. There could be jealousy there, sure, but I don't think, and I feel like this is kind of where the first take conversation went, which I'll talk about in a second. I don't think it's all jealousy. I feel like a lot of it is frustration because look, this season has been built up as the season of Caitlin Clark. There's a reason why the Fever are on TV as much as they're going to be. And mind you, this was a team that won like 13 games last year, so they weren't necessarily one of the top teams in the league. But WNBA noting that Caitlin Clark, with the celebrity that she has coming from Iowa and what she did there and the eyeballs that she brought there, obviously some of those eyeballs are going to migrate to the WNBA. So the league, as we know, trying to get some stability under themselves, create some new money, they were going to feed into that. I don't have any problem with that, but there could be somewhat of an issue from that as we're seeing. So when you look at Indiana play, right? Yes, Caitlin Clark's averaging like 16 points a game. You give her that. I think like 5 rebounds, like 6.5 assists, something like that. Turnovers are like 5.5, which is way too high. But you figure with time that number will slowly come down. I think the biggest issue is the shooting hasn't been there. She's shooting just under 30% from three, like low 30% overall from the field. We remember she was touted as the next Steph Curry. She was gonna set the league on fire, shooting from deep, way beyond the arc, and it just hasn't happened yet. I feel like some of that is probably out of her control. The timetable of finishing the college season, entering the draft, getting drafted, starting the season, playing, I think the most games out of any team. That's a lot to ask. The coach, a lot has fallen on her footstep. Maybe she just hasn't had time to install a system. I don't know. But you're looking at a team, Caitlin Clark, you had the number one pick last year, Leah Boston. You have Kaylu Samuelson, who was a number 4 pick a few years ago. You have, Nalissa Smith, who was a number 2 pick. drawing a blank. Mitchell, the guard, was a high pick as well. So there's a lot of high picks on this team, and for them to look the way that they've looked, that's a problem. So I feel like with the fact that she hasn't, taken off like I think some of her fans would have liked, coupled with the coverage, which I feel like we can now kind of transition into the first take part. The coverage where when any platform talks WNBA now, it's basically Caitlin Clark centric. And once again, that's not necessarily an issue, but it kind of is, because looking at this, conversation here, that if you haven't seen it, go look it up on TikTok or YouTube. The exchange between Monica McNutt, Stephen A. Smith, which I thought was wildly entertaining, because Monica McNutt was not gonna let Stephen A. get away with some of the things that he said that she disagreed with, because Stephen A. Smith was basically coming from the point of view that jealousy and the fact that Caitlin Clark is the golden goose is leading to all of this. And I think for Monica McNutt and Molly as well, because she wasn't fully a part of the conversation, but she had little moments there, especially this face that she's made for at this point, where for people who are associated with the WNBA, they're looking at this as, well, Indiana's not that good. Caitlin Clark's not shooting well. But you have a league where you have the Vegas Aces, champions, Asia Wilson, arguably the best player in the league. Kelsey Plum, you have Brianna Stewart, who has a case to be best player in the league. You got Agunbawale, who's a great scorer in her own right. You have the Connecticut Sun that are undefeated, which for 2 days now, First Take has led with Caitlin Clark talk, has not mentioned any of these stories as well. You have the Liberty with their loaded roster. Like there's a lot going on, as well as the other rookies that came in with this class that was supposedly supposed to be like the first class of many to set the WNBA on another level. They're only focusing on Caitlin Clark. Now remember, in that class, you have Angel Reese, you have Cameron Brink, you have Cardoza, who I know was hurt, but she is back now. During the draft, these are the players that were highlighted as like this new generation of talent to go along with like Paige Beckers and Juju Watkins, who are coming down the line. But yet, a lot of the attention is strictly on Caitlin Clark, and I feel like that's where the issue is with a lot of the other players. So I feel like some fans who maybe weren't tuned into the WNBA until Caitlin Clark have viewed it as they're jealous of her, while other fans who've been watching the WNBA are like, they're frustrated with her coverage being the lead story, and a lot of times the only way the WNBA gets talked about. So not going to say that everything Stephen A. said was wrong, because obviously Caitlin Clark has done wonders for viewership. But Stephen A. also said it like he made it seem like because of Caitlin Clark, they're getting the chartered flights and everything like that. We don't know that. It's easy to make that correlation because it's happened ironically in her first season, but that's not something that was just brought up by her or just this season. Like these players have been talking about their travel for years now. So I feel like it's a conversation that was entertaining, like I said, but I feel like two things can be true: that Caitlin Clark, yes, is probably the most popular player in the WNBA, but if the WNBA wants to be taken seriously and have sustained growth, outlets like First Take or Colin Cowherd or whoever your commentator, analyst that you like to watch, their best bet would be, yes, you can talk Caitlin Clark, but highlight some of the other great players. So for me, like a Connecticut Sun fan, Alyssa Thomas is like a walking triple double. Has been in MVP conversations. They can talk about her. You got DeWanna Bonner, who's on Connecticut, that's been around for a while. Great sharpshooter from three. Like I said, just beyond Connecticut, there's other young talent like Aaliyah Boston, who's on Indiana, even though she's struggling as well. You could talk about her. You could talk about Ryan Howard in Atlanta. Like there are players that I feel like for first taking them, introduce some of the new WNBA fans to some of these other players. That's like my point of view with it. And I feel like that's where Monica was trying to come from. Now, Stephen A. Smith, you've seen the image of, well, that face from him, because he tried to make it seem, well, he stated that First Take has talked about women's sports more than other shows and platforms like that. To which Monica said, yeah, you're doing it now. And she basically said because of Stephen A's platform, could have been talking about this 3-4 years ago, but they weren't. Which Stephen A, did his whoa, wow thing. That's also a good point, because you don't know if certain people were talking about it years ago in the same way that they are doing it now with Caitlin Clark. Would the league be in a better place? Don't know. Can't say whether it would or wouldn't, but it probably would have some sort of help or assistance in the league growing, which ultimately is what the WNBA is trying to do. Which obviously, once TV deals and everything, I did do a video, I think it's been a couple of weeks now, with the NBA new TV deal that supposedly might be close to being announced. The WNBA factoring into that, that could definitely help the league. But yeah, so Caitlin Clark's probably going to face more, not necessarily like the Kennedy Carter hit, but she's going to get the attention of teams. Now, it doesn't help Indiana. Like I said, they played the most games. They played tough teams early. They played the Sun a couple of times. They played the Liberty. They played the Aces. They played like the best teams in the league so far. So the losses were going to be there. It's just for them, they just don't look like a team that's going to compete this year based off of how they're running their offense and everything like that. So yeah, Caitlin Clark obviously is going to get top billing because of the fans she's brought in. But like I said, with those new fans, open them up to some other players and teams. Sure, some may tune it out, but you never know. Just never know. So let me know in the comment section what you thought about all this. Like I said, I definitely saw where Monica was coming from and tended to agree with her that, you can highlight some other players while still giving Caitlin Clark her props for the popularity boon in the WNBA. But yeah, let me know in the comment section how you feel about it. Appreciate you checking out the video. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, I'm out.